Hi dear friends, very good morning to all of you. Today in this video I would be basically talking about what is antibiotics, who discovered the antibiotics, who used the term antibiotic for the first time, and what are the types of antibiotics and what is the present state of mind or state of matter. Antibiotics are those chemicals or those drugs which help us in killing the bacteria or the bacteria organisms which are spreading the infections or stopping their growth so that they may not grow further and the infection is prevented. Antibiotics are of two types: broad spectrum antibiotics and narrow spectrum antibiotics. The broad spectrum antibiotics kill a variety of large number of bacteria or microorganisms, and narrow spectrum antibiotics kill the narrow region or some small number of bacteria or microorganisms. We have to understand that bacteria produce certain chemicals which inhibit or kill the growth or spread of other microorganisms, and these chemicals are known as antibiotics. So when antibiotics are administered to the human body, they do not kill the human cells because they are antibacterials, they only kill bacteria. Bacteria or the microorganisms, they are mainly responsible for a large number of infections in the human body, like septicemia, lung infections, blood infections, and other regional infections. The antibiotics was first used by Suleman Waksman in 1942. The first antibiotic, that is penicillin, it was discovered by Alexander Fleming in 1928. The 20th century has been a revolution in the field of antibiotics or microbiological infections treatment, where large number of scientists, mainly Paul Ehlrich, discovered and worked on the treatment protocols for infections caused by microorganisms in human body. Also, antibiotics are of two types. One are bactericidal and the other are bacteriostatic. Now, what is the difference between bactericidal and bacteriostatic? Well, the first one, bacteriostatic, it inhibits the growth of microorganisms to further other microorganisms. That means the antibiotics, they attach themselves to the DNA of the bacteria and inhibit the synthesis of proteins necessary for the growth of the microorganisms, and thus they inhibit the growth of microorganisms. The other, bactericidal, they actually attack the cell wall or the cell membrane of the bacteria and they kill, basically damage or kill the bacterial cells. The main examples of bactericidal antibiotics is penicillin, gentamicin. The example of bacteriostatic antibiotics is basically erythromycin. Same is the difference between examples of the broad spectrum antibiotics and the narrow spectrum antibiotics. Penicillin is basically regarded as a broad spectrum antibiotics, and erythromycin and gentamicin are mainly regarded as a narrow spectrum antibiotics. Now, when is the broad spectrum and the narrow spectrum antibiotics are used? When we are not aware of the affecting microorganisms in human body causing the infection, we use the broad spectrum antibiotics. And once the lab test reports confirms that any specific microorganism causing the infection in human body or animals, we use narrow spectrum antibiotics. Another thing we have to understand that antibiotics have a tendency to develop resistance among microorganisms, and they regenerate very fastly to newer forms which are resistant to the antibiotics already used by human body. How to prevent it is the one way is to stop misuse of antibiotics, and only the prescribed dose of antibiotics shall be taken by all of us. What happens when antibiotic resistance increases? We have to use the stronger antibiotics or the more broad spectrum antibiotics, research antibiotics, or the synthetic ones to counter the resistance among the microorganisms against the earlier antibiotics. There are various class of antibiotics like cephalosporins, beta-lactam antibiotics, beta-lactam antibiotics, which is example is penicillin, like ciprofloxacin. Other are cephalosporins class of drugs like ciprofloxacin. These are the antibiotics which are mainly used or prescribed by the doctors to the patients. Antibiotics have helped the humanity to control a lot of infections affecting the people across the world. More research is required to find out the target specific and the more specific antibiotics so that the resistance is not developed, and number two, the treatment is successful, which is antibiotic chemotherapy. Antibiotics help not only in bacterial infections but also in some serious lifestyle diseases or the serious diseases like cancer. In cancer, the platelet counts and the lymphocyte counts decreases, in which the patient is more prone to infections. So in those cases, the antibiotics are also prescribed. One thing we have to understand that antibiotics are not antivirals. That means they do not kill the viruses. To kill the viruses, we have to use the antiviral drugs. And antibiotics do not kill majority of fungal infections because we have to use the antifungal drugs for them. That's it in this video. I will meet you in next video, and if you do like my videos, subscribe to my channel, like, share, and I just believe in one thing, that the knowledge shared is knowledge squared. That's it. Signing off, Devansh Mehta, M Farm MBA.